art of telling a story. And so we want them to embrace the idea of telling the story of who they are. They're introducing themselves to us through their work. And sometimes they get so nervous about that and make it just about the work. It's not about the work as much as it is about them and their approach to creating that. So we're going to look at the paper versus the digital portfolio. And we do want to stress that it's important that they do have both. Right now, at this stage in their training, quite frankly, whatever they have is fine. When Matt and I were going over this earlier, we talked about Todd Rosenthal, who's one of the top scene designers in the US. He teaches at Northwestern. He says when he has students come to him, he doesn't want people who come in with flashy portfolios. He wants people who study history and read and study art and architecture, because he knows that he can train them. The idea is that we are going to get students we can train. So tell them that they don't have to have a flashy portfolio, but they should have a little bit of a presence in both worlds. And if they do have a website or they do have a presence online, they cannot bank on that alone getting them work. They still have to be able to speak to and showcase themselves. Matt, I don't know if you wanted to take this.
Yeah, I mean, and when we're in person, I mean, the important thing is, you all know, right? We're very tactile people. So we like to touch things, we like to see them. So if they have a rough model, if they did a costume that they built and they can bring in parts of the fabric, you know, I want to see a prop that they built just so I can see, you know, what are they considering to be good work? What kind of materials are they using? Those types of things. You know, it can get lost in a picture, but when you hold it in your hand, you can't ignore what it is. So the idea that I can touch that fabric and I know how difficult it was to work for them, right? And it's all those things that we're used to that we know when they're coming in that they may have struggled a little bit to get to that end process, but we can tell why based on what they're using. So, and just seeing a model, I mean, I love seeing a model, you know, that shows me that they put the work in and the research and that type of thing into that. So, and, you know, making sure that they're easy to figure out why they put them in there, and then that there's consistency amongst their digital and their paper one. So if I get a digital portfolio and they come in with a totally different paper portfolio, it's kind of off-putting to me in a way, right? Because they're not paying attention to details of the work that they're doing. So it's all about detail.
Their digital portfolio right now can be something as simple as a Google Doc or a file that they create that they can just share the link with somebody if they don't have the resources to develop a site. And look, the thing about equity and accessibility is very important when it comes to this kind of thing. So if somebody comes in having spent a great deal of money on a professionally polished portfolio, that's not going to necessarily, well, it's not going to show anybody in a better light than if they have a Google file that they're sharing with us. Right now, what we're looking at is the content of the work and what's in here and here.
I will say too, I mean, if they go to a school and interview, make sure you practice with them a little bit before they come, and having questions prepared for us. It's a little weird when you say, do you have anything for us? And I go, no, right? It's like, you have to have something, like, what are we doing professionally? Like, what are, you know, they should be interviewing us as much as we're interviewing them. They should know if they want to work with us for 4 years. Are we going to give them the training that they want for 4 years? Because ultimately, it's our job to prepare them to get a job. So if we're not in that realm of what they need, then they need to ask those questions. It's really important.
Is it possible that you all, and I don't know if you're going to get to this in the slide, but is it possible that you all could provide like a sampling of questions that you typically ask in an interview of a portfolio? Because those are things that we as teachers want to prep our students for. And I only know from like 10 years ago when I was trying to get into school, you know what I mean? So the kinds of questions even the language has changed over the years.
That's a really good question. Yeah, we can address that. We often ask a lot of questions about if they're showing us individual shows or projects in class. We'll often ask them why they made the choices they made. And you can tell a lot about a person based on how they answer that. Or we can ask about the way something, like, tell us a little bit about this photo. Sometimes people will say negative things about a piece, like it shows us that they are, like, for instance, they'll say, well, we didn't really have a lot of money when we did this, and the teacher wanted to do this, but I really wanted to do this. And what they are showing us is who they are. So that's one of the things that I would talk to the students about, not being negative. If they feel like they have to say something negative about the work or have to say something negative about somebody else on the project, they shouldn't include the project. This industry is about collaboration and about working together to tell a story. So every once in a while, we will get a student who I think there's something in them that might come across like they might feel like they're doing a good job by showing how much farther advanced they are than the rest of their classmates. Like they think, oh, I'll just say I wanted to do this, but nobody else wanted to do it, and that might make them look good. Well, it does the exact opposite.
Right.
So we always getting an idea of like how they got to that point. And then when we ask a question about their choice, if they become apologetic or they get defensive, that shows us something else. We want to see excitement about the work and the ideas, and that's the most important thing.
Well, and we also want to see and hear about, and we're BA, so that's, we want to hear about them working with and collaborating with other areas too, right? Mm-hmm. So we want people that have acted on stage, right? Like that's not a downside for us. That's a plus, right? Because then they understand why they're putting something on stage, because they've been on stage. So don't tell them not to hide from that. That's okay. But knowing that if they're a lighting designer, that they stage manage a show, right? Like that's important, because then they know how to communicate with each other. So there's a lot of plus sides in them doing a lot of different jobs. They don't just, if they're going for set design, they don't just have to talk about set design, right? They can talk about the other things that they did. And a lot of times we ask them what other hobbies and things they have outside of theater, because we want to know who they are as people. It's really important that we are working with people that we want to work with too, right? Because I spend a lot, if you come into a shop, I spend a lot of time with you, right? Like I spend more time with some of my students than I do with my family. So which is sad, but that's the reality of our industry. That's something that
needs to change in our industry too.
Yeah, but like if I'm at work for 8 hours a day, I might have a student in the shop with me for 4 hours, right? So I want to make sure that the person I'm working with is a good person and wants to work and wants to collaborate, right? And get out of the shop.
They have a desire. They what do they want? What are they into? What do they love? We want them to have opinions, and they shouldn't necessarily agree with us on, we don't want them to parrot back or be little mini-me's. The idea of having an opinion and something mattering in the world is the heart of a storyteller. And those people always make us lean forward, right?
We talk about this a little bit later, but having artwork from their art classes, is not a bad thing to have. Like we want to see what their talents are, what they're producing, even if it's not for an art class. If it's just something they do for fun. If they have a sketchbook, we can learn a lot just from those small things.
Yeah. I'm gonna jump back and do a couple of technical things, and we'll keep coming back to the more. Really, that's the meat of. Now we're talking to teachers, we can change the gears a little bit, but make sure that they know that they should have a table of contents, a clear title page, that their contact information should be included. Like a lot of students, and they should have their resume in the front and have resumes available to hand out. That first and foremost above anything else. And just like we always tell a stage manager, make sure all of your contact info is in your show Bible. In the event that you leave it on the subway, I know we don't have subways here, but or leave it in a gas station or wherever. I don't know why anybody would do that, but A restaurant. So that people can find you to get your book back. And it has happened. Making sure that the work is fully labeled, that it's clear what they did on the show, that everything is clean. And, all of this shows us who they are. The way that they organize, that, that we talk about consistency, like if it's oriented this way, make sure that it is consistently this way and that we don't have to switch back and forth. Sometimes people do those switch back and forth pages, especially if it's a really big portfolio, don't do that.
And make sure they label what they did is really important. If they're spending half their interview time explaining what they did, because they have other people's work or it's just not laid out correctly, then they're kind of wasting their time for us to know who they are. So focusing on their work and knowing exactly, like if they write, I was the painter for the show, then that's all we're going to be looking at. We're not going to critique the design of a show that they didn't design, right? So making sure that it's very pointed.
We talked about quality being more important than quantity. And the example I always give to students is if I go to audition and I sing 3 songs and I knock 2 of them out of the park and I blow one, like blow it, what are they going to remember? And that is the same with, if I give you a portfolio and 2 things are really cool and the 3rd thing is terrible, people are going to wonder that actually puts a wrench in the machine of my ability. They're like, okay, is she going to be bringing that to the table? Because if so, I don't trust her as much as a designer.
Yeah,
and
I'd rather see 2 or 3 really good things than see 8 average or bad things.
Yeah.
So
ditto.
And again, they shouldn't apologize for where they are. So if they're just showing us their work from their senior year, that is really good. That's perfect. I mean, that's
more is not more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's not a scrapbook. We get a lot of high school portfolios that are kind of scrapbooky, like, they have their programs, and that is visual noise that gets in the way. Yes, they should keep their programs, keep them somewhere else in a box under the bed. If they want to keep them in the back of the portfolio, great. If they designed the program, that's a different story than if it's just in there, especially if it's somebody else's work. Big clunky programs under plastic sheets, they're not really helpful. So try to dissuade them to, they don't need to bring a scrapbook in. I think we went through a phase for a while where we were encouraging people to keep everything in one place. And in fact, we tell students to gear their portfolio each time to kind of shift it and gear it toward who their audience is. Sorry, Matt.
Yeah. And some of these portfolios we're going to be showing you are like $100, $200 portfolios. That's not what we're expecting. They can be in a 3-ring binder. They can go to Staples or wherever and buy one of those small portfolios. As long as it's showing their work, that's what we care about. It doesn't need to be in a 11 by 17 type thing. As long as their images are big enough for us to see. We don't need little tiny microscopic ones, right? Where everyone's putting their glasses on to make sure they can see what their work is.
We're really interested in making sure that things are accessible to students who may not have the money to buy a portfolio. So, and we're coming out of a world where, people are being told you have to have your sheet music in on a manila folder. You have to have it this way. You have to have this. You have to have this. We want to send the message out to the world that what matters is your ideas and your work. And we consider you all even when you're coming in. What sets you apart are your ideas. So if there is a student who doesn't have access to the materials, they can come in with 8.5 by 11 paper that they can get from one of you. And if it's that you have to print something in color for them to help them and can do that, that's great. And so they should never feel embarrassed about the work that they have. We can help them to showcase themselves when they get here. So these are just a couple of things that, that we recommend to students. Paperwork, like if they are doing paperwork, like light plots and things, the bulk of their portfolio should be the photos and the renderings and the sketches and the art. The technical things that are roadmaps, like that are informational, yes, that organizational stuff is important, but that's not going to be the meat of the portfolio. And they need to be able to access it, to access it quickly and to show it, but their entire portfolio shouldn't be page after page after page of paperwork, but nothing is more boring. So there are ways that they can do that by using back pockets. They can make internal small pages. They can just keep it in a separate portfolio that they can pull out to show when they're doing it. We tell them if they have swatches to keep them out of the plastic so that we can touch them. Costume designers and technicians want to touch everything, as you well know. And this is not our idea. This is Raphael's idea. But the idea of half pages, between pages, and if you look at this one, there's a half page and then half page, and you can stack them so that you can always see the work, and you can do, like, the show is contained between two big pages. If they're doing a portfolio like this and they have more work, they could do it this way. Typically, you're not going to have this degree of work for a high school student, but there are some who surprise us. These are college portfolios that we're looking at right now. This is Raphael. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I just had a question about the paperwork side of it. Like, so I have a technical background, so that's like less of a concern in my particular classes, because I think I have a good handle on what that paperwork looks like and how to get the students comfortable with it. But not every high school teacher is like that. And that paperwork is very intimidating to someone who has never done lighting design and is now training a student to do lighting design. And so in regards to the portfolios, when you talk about paperwork, what's kind of the expectation from a high school student? Is it really expected that they're going to have a light plot? Especially when we don't, like, I can't even change the lighting structure anyway, so it's irrelevant.
No, and then I'll let Matt speak to this, but I do want to say we have the range from having never done anything to just talking about things to people with a little bit of a portfolio. And sometimes those people who come in just talking about ideas end up being our top students. I mean, it really does vary. So we are meeting them where they are, and we are not alone at Clemson in doing that. We can suss out, milk out what they have in the way of ideas and talk to them about work in that interview. Matt, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think too, like with lighting, if what we call, legal pad design, right? Where if they just sketch things out on legal pad paper, I mean, that's fine. I mean, I've done designs like that professionally, right? It's like when you only have so much time, you only have so much time and so much money, you're only going to put in so much paperwork, right? So, if they're doing some free program stuff like SketchUp, things like that are great, because that's the foundation of AutoCAD, right? So if you can get those free programs, like we don't expect them coming in with Vectorworks, right? We'll teach them Vectorworks.
Or any program. Yeah, there's no expectation, but whatever they can do.
Or if they're starting to do things with, like every school's got a STEM, I feel like now, like if they're doing 3D modeling or 3D printing, things like that, make sure they're taking pictures of those things and producing those, because those are all now foundations, right? So tell them not to be afraid to bring in things that are not theater.
But things that are related to AutoCAD or programs they might use in the college program. Okay.
Yeah. And I do want to say this, Mary. We've had students come in with these like high school students, super polished portfolios, and sometimes they almost come in as unapproachable, like I know what I need to know. And I do want to warn them, those who might be more advanced, to just, they're a big fish in a little pond, and the world is, and there's so much more out there. So the main thing that any college and university is going to be looking at is this person trainable? Do they have something to gain from coming to us? And if all they're giving us is, yeah, I've already done that. I know how to do that. I know, and I think sometimes it's just misguided, and it's coming from a place of fear and wanting to impress. But they need to be really, it's important to be aware that that's how it comes across.
I'd also tell them not to be afraid to not say they don't want to be a designer. Too,
yeah.
Right? Like there's a lot of jobs in our industry, and they might not want to be designers. They might want to be builders or the implementers of things, right? So they might not want to be a costume designer. They might want to be an artisan, you know, and do costume crafts. So those things are, we need those people in our industry, and those are the people that are going to get work instantly.
Yep, always.
When this pandemic's over, like, they're the first ones going to get hired, right? Because they're going to try getting all these shows back up that they already had. So tell them not to be afraid to say, like, you don't have to have set designer as your title. You can be a paint charge and work consistently your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I'd rather have someone come in with an open mind and discover who they are and what they want to be than somebody that's definitely coming in at 17 saying, I'm going to be this, right? So, because that, like, again, I thought I was going to be a lighting designer. Then I thought I was going to be a stage manager. I didn't know what a TD was until after my first year of college, right? Because nobody, why would you if you didn't go to a school that had a TD? So, you know, tell them not to be afraid to just show us who they are and what their work is, you know?
Yeah, agreed. So much amen to all of that. Just a couple more tips. I'm sorry, we have so much to talk about. It's exciting. I want to get through some of what I consider technical stuff. Yeah. So making sure, and they need your eyes on this. Often, we live in a world, and I'm the worst about texting, and then I don't even look at it before I hit send. And we're really bad about not double checking ourselves in this culture right now. So making sure that they're labeling things clearly, and that we know what their role was on the show, that we know what the show is, that it's titled, and that there are no spelling or grammatical errors really help them with this. If they're going to handwrite something, that could be cool if they have a really cool design plate that they do and it's crafted neatly. That's cool. But just making sure that whatever they do is consistent and that it's neat and approachable. And that their role is identified and they're not using the work of anybody else unless they're clearly identifying that and tell how they used it in the portfolio. And then we're going to go into a couple of like ideas about photographs and making sure that they're clear and easy to see. Before I'm going to just stumble through a couple of these so we can pick up on a couple more tips to talk about. But this is from a portfolio case, obviously. This is from Kip Schauger and his design for Tartuffe. And one of the things we wanted to encourage students, if they have it, or whatever they have that is kind of taking the place of this, if they have a sketch, even if it's not scaled, some kind of rough ground plan, an idea of what they want it to look like from the front, any idea of color or swatches that they might have, if they've done models, and if they've got photos of any of their work, show us what you have done. Nothing is, when you're just beginning, having just anything that you're throwing a dart at creating something, and even if they've never training on how to do it, just showing us how they got to the end is super important. Matt, did you have anything you wanted to add on that?
I think
we said all this.
This is our entry to their personality too. So it doesn't have to be just a flat black background. They can add a little bit of their personality to it as long as it's consistent and appropriate for that portfolio piece.
Yeah, and not taking away from it.
Mm-hmm.
Your background should never be the main event.
Main thing that I'm looking at. But I think just consistency, and then showing, with the handwriting, things like that. When people will tell me that one of their skills is organization and paying attention to detail, and then you see misspellings in their titles and things like that, they're not paying attention to details, right? So they shouldn't put something in their skills that they're obviously not putting into their portfolios. So it's just. And, Shannon and I have, we teach a class just to go to SCTC, right? Because it's a different portfolio for that. And if myself, Shannon, David Hartman, our other senior faculty, and Kendra, our customer, are on the same room, we're all going to give different notes.
Yeah,
right? So
we always disagree.
We always disagree on what we want to see. So they're going to have to figure out who they are, get notes from a couple people, and then take the ideas that represent them and put that onto the paper. So it's really important that the portfolio is them, you know?
Yeah. Yep. So these are some examples shared with permission of bad portfolio photos. These are all people who have come through the ranks and would now like just hang their head in shame if they were associated with their names. But for this one, which was for a costume designer who is now actually not a costume designer, but a costume technician in the professional world. How many things can you pick that is, you know, like if you're showing this for your costume design portfolio, it's like, oh no, you know, look, like where are his hands? These shoes don't fit, and this, I'm not going to talk, you know, not trying to shame anyone about their work or, but the idea of this photo in this is in 3/4 position. It's taken low. We've got some legs up. There are all kinds of things that are distracting about it. Additionally, the set isn't painted completely. So there are things that are pulling my eye and making me wonder why they chose this photo. And you know, I would say if I had a student who came in with this, I'd say, okay, so yeah, you don't include this, you take it out. And until they're good enough to edit on their own and they're real with themselves, help them with this. This was from a lighting design portfolio. I mean, I don't know what it's supposed to tell me other than the theaters, the house is really big and they light green. It doesn't show me anything. It doesn't show me any ability in the way of lighting design at all. And then this is a set photo, which is really a cast photo with the crew. And it doesn't show me anything about the storytelling, or it just says, oh, they have really unfortunate curtains and they had some furniture that they pulled. I don't know if this is part of the set or not, this folding metal chair. I have no idea what they're trying to show me. And so this to me just, it's jarring and I don't know what to think about it. And what it would say is, you don't know how to, you know, give us a way in to talk to you about design.
Okay, I have a question about this. So as you have these, I guess my question is do you guys have any suggestions for methods to encourage the photographic process? Just because I know I'm kind of one of those people, because I'm really bad about this, even with myself, is that, you know, you get so caught up in doing the work that you get to the end and you're like, we didn't take any photos of that at all. Why didn't we take any, you know? Do you have any like tips, suggestions that you guys use?
We talked about this, is just creating a culture of photography, right? So encourage your students to bring out, you know, everyone's got a camera in their pocket now. So
are they allowed in school? They might be. I know some schools take them away, but yeah, in the theater classroom, they should have them all the time.
Like in the tech, yeah, but like encourage them to take pictures of each other's work. I can't tell you how many of my students have said, oh, I forgot to take a photo of this, but another student in the shop had a picture of it, right? Or I had a picture of it. So if you—
I'm always creeping around.
Yeah, Shannon's always taking pictures. So if you have 6 people taking photos, even if you forgot to take a picture because you got so, you know, and I get it, there's a whole week goes by where I'm like, oh man, I didn't take a picture of any of my process, right? You know, but if someone else was going behind me taking pictures, then you know you're going to be covered. So just creating that culture, which is hard to get started, but once it becomes like a commonplace thing, you just got to make sure they're not, you know, playing games on their phone. But you know, but
yeah, there's that.
You know, and then when it comes down to your show photos, it's hard, right? Because even when you bring in somebody that knows what they're doing, sometimes you get bad photos. I mean, it just happens, and sometimes you don't know till it's over. So, but you know, if it's costuming, they can always go back and ask a student to model in their picture, right? And get in front of a black curtain or something with a muted back that makes that person pop out. You know, I'd rather see them in that costume and seeing the shape on the body than seeing a bad shot on stage, right? Which isn't the student's fault, you know, kind of thing.
Right.
So,
Yeah, people will say that they want to see it in the environment, but if it's taking away or you can't see it, then no. Neutral lighting is helpful. So and you know, they know how to crop photos. They're constantly making their photos, you know, let it be true and representative of what was there. So if the lighting is such in the photo that we can't see what it really looked like in the real world, try to give us what it looked like. So if they need to just tweak it a little bit, just so they're remaining honest. Like I wouldn't reshape my figures for my costume design to make them look a little bit more appealing. I want to be honest with it. Like this was a lighting designer portfolio piece, and it just doesn't show me anything about lighting because the work lights are on. But man, the same student did the scenic painting. Look how awesome that is. That's a big shoe print. Hello, that's freaking awesome. That shows me a lot about what they can do. And like I would say, don't put that with lighting, put it with this, because it shows me your ability here, and you can crop it. So getting them to take what they have and make the best of it is, they're going to be doing that for the rest of their lives. You can't take too many photos. This is one of our students who's now in graduate school, former student who's now in graduate school at UT Knoxville. And she was just trying to get work doing this kind of work. So she was really featuring pictures of, you know, like she said, this is not ordinarily what she had in her portfolio, but she does now, because if she's doing technology work, they want to see how clean her cartridges are. They want to see that rough. They want to see the boning and that her pattern actually lines up. And this is beautiful technology work that anybody in the technology field would go, thank you, that's the kind of photo I want. Like if it's not my area, I may not look at it as closely, but getting the right kinds of photographs for the audience is super important.
Well, you know, I don't know a lot about costuming, but I know good work, right? You can look at something and you can say that wasn't done well or that is done well, right? Like I couldn't tell you how she made that, but I could tell you she did a good job making it. So, you know, every student interviewing at a university is going to have different people at the table. So they just have to put in their best work so they can look at it and know. They might have one person at the table that knows exactly what they did, but the other two that are probably helping decide if they get a scholarship or if they get to go to that school might not know exactly how they built it, but they will know if it's good or work or not. So, because you got to think scholarship too. It's not just getting into a program.
Yeah. So these things are just like any work they have. If they're interested in painting, design, anything is fine. We want to see their work. And it can be a picture of a mural that they helped to co-paint, or, you know, it doesn't have to be something that they actually have in person. This is, you know, we want to see process. This is somebody a little bit later, but the idea of a sketch and showing us that we can get that product from you is really important. So if they have that kind of work, great. If they don't, just showing us what they're thinking is fine. Projection designers, if you've had students who've done any kind of projection design, no matter what equipment they're using for that, showing us what it looks like in the context of the scene is very, very helpful. Oh, wow, we're running out of time here.
And make sure if they want to go into something specific like that, that they're actually doing those things. Right. So if they want to do projection, which is going to be a large part of our industry in the next couple of years, right, that their school is actually doing those things within their 4-year span. You don't want to send them to a school for something and then find out they only did one show in the thing that they really want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you all see this? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I was going to show you, we're at that point and I'm going to speed it up a little bit. This is a sound designer portfolio. So if you have any students who are interested in sound design, one of the things that we wanted to share with all of you, let me make this go smaller, is like, if we have a video of a student in a working situation, oh wait, hold on. I don't think I did, bear with me. I'm going to stop share and share again because I didn't actually hit share my audio, which is kind of important for audio. With this student, one of the things that we wanted to show you is that we're just seeing how he works with others, and this is telling us a lot about him. This is one of our students, and this is his current portfolio.
Team. 3, 4, out, chug, 6, boom, 8, 1. Does that make sense?
I believe so.
Okay.
So it's like wait, 1 count, and then?
Okay, so just a little bit of that shows you that he's a collaborative artist and that he is actually invested in getting the timing right with the orchestra. And this is a little bit of his mixing. So we're seeing some of his paperwork. We're seeing the context of the moment. Okay, so this kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of how he's presenting himself. And I'm going to show you one more show. This is from his production of Tempest, and he's got a nice uniformity. This is a storm he created for the Tempest in our small theater. Okay, and one of the things I wanted to say about this is that he gives us context, he shows us what it looked like, and then each one of the moments through the show, he does that, or he gives us the lines that it pairs up with, so that we get a sense of what he was trying to create. And he's got several shows on here where he does that.
And you can do something, if you have somebody that's doing sound, if it's something as easy as making a PowerPoint that auto plays with images from the show with just the sound effects playing during those times, that's all it needs to be.
Yeah.
Right? Just needs to be a PowerPoint, but having that visual with it really gives us the idea of what they were working with, because we might not know the show too. So. And
this is from a projection designer, projection mappers portfolio. This is somebody who is out of college, and this is one of my shows that I designed. But just to give your students an idea, if they are doing this work, how they might, an actor might have a reel. This is a way that a projection designer or sound designer can create a little bit of a reel for a show. We'll share all this with all of you also. I'm doing it with the sound off so you can hear it, but oh, let me do the sound. Okay, so I think you can kind of get the idea. So just taking little bits of the show and putting them together in something that they can share, like once again in a Google Drive, that's a good way to share that with somebody so that you can have access to work. Okay.
One of this question popped in after she said this. Get your students to ask the professors where they're working and where alumni are working, right? That's the thing that they're trying to do, right? Is if you want to find out where their alumni are going, so
yeah. Oh.
And who are all the students now?
I don't know if you're going bad or if I am. Was Matt getting digital for y'all? Okay.
Sorry.
No, I'm usually the one who's having problems. I know we're getting close. I wanted to show you, this is an issue portfolio one of our former students did. He is in the Charleston area right now and is about to start grad school. These are some of the things that he designed while in college. This is his production of Loot. He's showing his painting work, his process work, his research. Ground plan, the actual photos from the production. You can see that he delivers what he says he's going to do. This is his almost main. And his ideas, his little psych bar model, his inspiration was a snow globe. His elevations, his ground plan, the actual set, Midsummer. I'm just going to kind of move through these a little quickly. And this is he did this when he was in college, his first professional production of Rocky Horror Warehouse Theater. But he's got a consistency, and this is at Lean Ensemble in Hilton Head. But what he's done is he's also given us some related works. He's got abilities in architecture. He's got some product design. He's got scenic painting. He did the scenic charge work for the national tour of Jesus Christ Superstar that was at the Barbican in London. And then he's got his link to his online portfolio. I'm going to stop the share because I think we're getting really close.
We have like 2 minutes left.
Yeah. So we're going to give you all of this so that you have links to all of those things to share with your students, and links to our portfolios, and some more do's and don'ts that we hope will help. Okay, you might have questions.
Oh, I did have a quick question. Also, on when they're including reference work, obviously citation and everything is very important, but like how would you want students to include any sort of citations or attributions to references that they have?
If it's public domain type work or stuff that that is just out there on the internet that they can get in a Google search, they don't necessarily have to do that. But if they are like sound designers, for instance, they have to. I mean, we have to share that in the program. And if there isn't like ASCAP, BMI, then we have to pay rights for it. But yeah, so if it is something that is borrowed, you should typically say shared with permission. I did it verbally in this particular thing. We shared everything with permission. And if we didn't, we would have a works cited page. You can even footnote it. Anyway, I think whatever they do, just so they remain consistent, and make sure they know that gives them credibility to share where they're getting their information, because it shows that they do their research and their homework.
And having that citation, like their title pages and things like that, showing other people's names on it just gives us, because there's a lot of times, you know, we just had someone apply from Fine Arts Center and she gave me references from 2 people, but I called the person and she didn't, right? Because I want to know what they say. Like, why didn't they ask that person to give the reference? So if we know they're coming from your school and they don't have your name on it, we're going to call you, you know, or ask you if we have questions. So if we can see a name or we're like, oh, they worked with them, we know who they are and we know their quality of work, then that also helps kind of shape who they are.
Yeah, and like knowing, like talking to the teachers, like, you know, like Jennifer, I remember you from a couple years ago from SCTA, I believe, with your students. Wait, you're at Dorman, right? No, am I confusing you?
No. This is my first year teaching high school. I was middle school.
Oh, okay. Okay, so well, I'm making crap up then. But like now that we met you, and I haven't met Tyree yet, but now that we have been in the same room, if a student of yours comes across one of our desks and they say, Jennifer Simmons was my teacher, Mary O'Connor was my teacher, we'll be like, oh, okay. So that's a way in the door for, you know, they're basically saying this person was the person who taught me. And, you know, if you have any questions, please go to them. I think that's such a good way to connect. Showing our industry is, you know, small and we have ways to get there. Make sure they know to do that.
Well, what you all are doing right now is helping your students, because we're remembering names. I mean, so when you're going to these conferences, I know sometimes it's a drag and it takes a lot of time, but you know, it does help your students in the long run because we remember who you are a lot of times. So.
Or we just make up who we think you are from another thing, like I just did. But yeah. So I don't know if we're I don't know when we're going back, but I wanted to give you the link to this PowerPoint so that you have
like 60 seconds.
Oh, let me see if I can beat the clock here. Share.
And Shannon, can I put your email in?
Yes.
I'm gonna put your Yahoo one.
Okay, and let me go back to you real quick. Like I'm sharing this. Paste. Here it is. That is the link that you can certainly steal and use. We give you our full permission. If you need names of people in there, because originally we weren't going to share like the whole thing. Our students' websites are there. Our websites are there, and you can see how we've done some of our work. And look, we're constantly changing our own. Like I see stuff on mine and I'm like, ooh, that's kind of nasty. I need to redo that. So do know that anytime you have a question, you just please write us. And here's my phone number if you'd like to call.
Oh wow! It's been a while, but yeah. So
yeah, this is my first year teaching there, and I've been doing introduction to design and introduction to production. So yeah, so I'm pretty busy, lots of projects. And I did push myself, and Kirsten will laugh at me about this, but in one of the design units that we are doing the Tempest. And I'm forcing, I keep forcing myself, to.
Holly, if you'll give me 1 second, I'm just going to tell real quick to everybody. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much to our presenters, Mr. Matt Leckenbusch from Clemson, Ms. Shannon Robert from Clemson. Thank you so much for your in-depth descriptions of tech portfolio.